Hello everyone, I'm CoolGuy, welcome back. I'm starting to get into my exotic reviews. I spend some time with them, I come up with some use scenarios, so today brings us to the Mask of Bakris, the new Beyond Light Hunter exotic helmet specifically designed for the new Revenant Stasis subclass. In this review, I'm going to discuss its PvE and PvP applications, best uses, difference with mouse and keyboard versus controller, how to set up the skill tree to get the most out of Bakris. And throughout the review, I'm going to discuss why this is one of the best exotic pieces in the entire game, not just for Hunter, the entire game. There's also something I want to go over with PvP, something you need to remember when using this exotic in the Crucible. It's a mindset. And importantly, I have good news for you. Mask of Bakris has a hidden perk. For the majority of this video, I'm going to be talking about it. And even if it goes away, this exotic is still going to be top tier. But with what I want to show you, again, I'm unsure if it's a bug. I'm unsure if it's hidden and found. I'm unsure if it's going to get patched after this video. Maybe by the time you watch this video, it's patched. Regardless, I hope it doesn't. It's fun. I can all but guarantee you that once you have this information, you're going to run Bakris differently. You're going to approach engagements differently. You're going to be mindful of it. Here's my full review, so let's get into it. The exotic perk is Light Shift, replaces your stasis subclass dodge ability with a longer range, faster moving shift that partially cloaks you during use. After shifting, your arc weapons deal increased damage for a short time. So shift replaces gamblers and marksman dodge, but when one is equipped, if you light shift next to an enemy, let's say you have gambler's dodge equipped, you're gonna get the benefit of the full melee charge back. The light shift extends about 11 meters. It's a long distance. It is directional, just like the dodge. Hit the dodge button, you go straight backward. It's very good for when you're being rushed. You can create space 10 plus meters backwards. Controller is more linear, but with a mouse, you can bend it a little bit. While you can't phase through enemies with practice, you can get next to, and I've seen some get behind them. It takes some practice. And with a mouse, you can also light shift in just a small area multi-directional. This light shift means you can cross gaps safely, you can close gaps more efficiently, you can create space more efficiently. In the Crucible, this gives you a lot of control in the gunfight that you're in because you know where you're going to be going, and the enemy doesn't. It states right on the exotic perk, longer range dodge, faster moving shift. It's very fast. The moment after you shift, there's a timer that goes on the screen that says light shift, and for 10 seconds, you're not able to regain class ability energy. Traveler's Chosen won't bypass it. Whisper of Refractions, the fragment for stasis that states slowed or frozen targets grants you class ability energy, doesn't work. Nothing bypasses it. It's going to be a check. It's going to keep it balanced, and I love this about it because it makes it not spammy. And in the PvP section, I'm going to get into more detail on why this is really good and why it's okay. The second part of the perk is where things get tricky. After shifting, your arc weapons deal increased damage for a short time. That short time coincides with the light shift cooldown, so that timer, whenever it's on the screen, is also going to be the time that you have the increased arc damage. This only works in PvE, so the scenario is you see some enemies, you shift, timer goes on the screen, you bring out your Ikelos SMG that's arc, maybe a Thunderlord, maybe the new Cloudstrike exotic arc sniper, and you do some extra damage. That extra damage is 10% more. But here's the hidden perk, and by the way, this works in PvE and the Crucible. I'm also going to get into details on the specifics in a moment. I have lots of scenarios to show you. You can use any fragment, but there are two that really stand out, and also something that you want is the new second Hunter aspect, Winter Shroud. Dodging slows nearby targets, and it's simple enough on what it does. So with this, I am positive that you've seen this or you've done this, but now's the time to know how to control it. When you have on Mask of Bakris and you shift, that timer that goes on the screen, this is the cooldown until you get your shift back, but it's also the time that you deal that 10% more damage with arc and PvE. Here's the deal. When you have this timer on your screen, the hidden perk is that any enemy that you slow while this timer's on the screen, you're gonna get 10% more damage with any weapon to that slow target. Your kinetic, your energy, your heavy. It could also even be your melee. Your melee even gets 10% more damage. And with this, it changes how you can approach engagements. There's a ton of examples I have for you, PvP especially, but it also makes Bakris a really good PvE pick. I have an entire section on that. I have some cool things to show you in PvE, but let's start with some Crucible examples. The main thing to remember is that after you dodge, that timer's on the screen, any enemy that you slow, you deal 10% more damage to, regardless of what weapon that you're using. So the easiest thing is the new aspect. You just dodge by them, past them, near them. When you do that, it's going to throw you away from them and they're going to be slowed. It's hard for them to turn back on you. They can't use abilities. It's basically like they're mini tethered. So since you shifted and they're slowed, something like a 120 hand cannon is getting 10% more damage. It's going to 2-tap. And before I go any further, the two fragments that I use are Whisper of Hedrons. This This one gives you 25% more weapon damage after freezing a target. And then Whisper of Durance. Slow abilities last longer. You can slow an enemy, whether it be with the aspect. You can slow them with one of the throwing melees. You can use a Duskfield grenade, and I'm going to get into Duskfield in a moment. It's a big thing for PvE and the Crucible. So after you dodge, when you slow them, you have this hidden perk active. You know that it's up because the body shots are yellow. It shows everything as a yellow crit to the body. But even though it's body damage, it's just 10% more. So like if you take any pellet shotgun, it turns the entire shot into one whole number. Some other things you can do, it can make a 140 sniper double body. In this clip, I dodge well away. I have the timer on the screen. I toss a Duskfield, it brings them in. Duskfield slows the target, and since this slows them, I get the 10% more damage on the weapon that I'm using. So you can see there are even ticks of 2 going on that are yellow, and the 140 goes to 100 damage per shot. I've actually used this in game, like right here on the cauldron. There's people that are rushing me, I go in, I dodge next to them too slow, I'm able to fire off 2 quick shots, and then I jump up and just end this guy. But another thing, it can make an Izanagi ×3, one shot to the body, and that one's pretty interesting. It makes 140 hand cannons do 77 to the head, so if you're to shift past someone, it's always going to be a 2 head and a 1 body. If you have something like Ace of Spades, Memento Mori active, and you're running around, someone comes by you, or they're rushing at you, you can dodge past them, dodge away from them, hit them with the slow. Now Ace's Memento Mori is going to do 99s, and then you can 2-tap with that. And with this, remember, as you dodge away and you dodge past them, they are very, very slow. A lot of weapons it helps, like Breach Light is a 2 burst, it does 45 to the head, and I go through this clip, I get all the way to the end, and a hunter's gonna jump over me, and I dodge under him, I end up slowing him, and since they're slowed, the 10% makes Breach Light do 50 to the head, so now Breach Light can 2 burst because of it. There's a lot of weapons that this does help, but next, let's get to another important part, the Hedron's Fragment. This is the one that gives you 25% more damage after freezing something, and here's the perfect clip. This is amazing. The damage that you're doing really is crazy. I'm gonna break it all down. And after this section, we'll get into PvE. But I throw this grenade down a hallway, it triggers Hedrons because I froze something. There's a damage boost that goes on the screen. As I get close, there are 2 enemies closing in on me, so I dodge. I leave them in the dust. As I shift out, I turn around. They're still trying to find me, they're slowed. I switch to Devil's Ruin, I charge it up. This has 25% more damage because of Hedrons. Then it takes that number, and then 10% more than that because they're slowed. So it's 49 to the crit on the laser beam, and also you can see the body shots are also that yellow number, like they're critting. Absolutely shreds them, but it gets better. Another enemy is rushing me. I still have the Bakris buff on my screen, so I throw my melee, this slows them. Now my True Prophecy does 124 crit damage. It's simply amazing, but here's the total damage of this combination. True Prophecy does 90 at base. When you get the damage boost from Hedrons, 25% more, it goes to 113. You can 2-tap with that. We talked about it in a previous video. Well, you take that 113, add 10% on top of that, that's where you get your 124. So with this combination, it's not as simple as that. Using Bakris, True Prophecy goes from 90 to 124. That's 37.7, 38% more damage than base. So if you were to throw a Cold Snap and tag an enemy and they get away, you have the Hedrons buff. You can throw the melee on another enemy, dodge next to another enemy, slow them. You're gonna deal 38% more damage with all of these combined because you're within the Bakris cooldown. It's very interesting with shotguns. With that max combination of the Hedrons buff, the Bakris buff, it can make a slug one-shot body. But again, it's only to the enemy that was slowed. You just don't run around with that 10% that Bakris is giving you. You have to slow something. With something like a high impact fusion rifle, after you slow them and you get past them, each bolt does over 50, making a 4-bolt kill. It's really good. But now, I'm not done by the way. There's an amazing interaction with the Duskfield. With Duskfield, it slows targets and freezes them if they don't get out. Well, you can shift at a distance, you can throw that Duskfield, and the enemies that get caught in, they're gonna be slowed. So it's gonna activate the 10% more damage that Bakris is giving by slowing. And then if they don't get out, they're gonna be frozen. And that means you're gonna get the Hedrons 25% buff. And that's why I recommend the Whisper of Durance for a longer slow. Now in the Crucible, you could run the Cold Snap, but the Duskfield works really, really good. The Duskfield is more so for PvE. And as I go on here, I really hope this doesn't get changed because it makes the Revenant Stasis Hunter viable in PvE. It's so good. Let's take Izanagi. On this Minotaur here, the base damage is 68,647. Say you shift next to them, this slows them. 10% more damage added to Izanagi is 75,511. Next, let's say we freeze the Minotaur and we get the Hedrons buff, so that's 25% more damage. That means a times 4 from Izanagi is doing 85,808. But here's where that dusk field comes in. Let's say you can't get close to this yellow bar. Maybe it's a champion. You shift at a distance, the timer goes on the screen for Bakris. You throw a dusk field. This is going to slow them, eventually freeze them. Now you have both of those buffs and it does 94,389. It's so good. And you can really set up engagements in PvE doing these solo lost sectors. And even in the raid, I don't have the new sword, but this combination's probably nuts with it. And as a matter of fact, I raided with Fallout Drew Cam Hop and I used the guillotine with Lucent Blade. I would get close, freeze them with a cold snap, dodge next to them to slow them, and then go with Lucent Blade. Huge damage from the guillotine. I loved it. But all in all here, if it stays as it is, it makes it good everywhere. The 10% isn't much, it really isn't much, but you can do so much more to add on top of that. As far as the Crucible, it's S tier alone on what it does. I've avoided supers that are right in front of me. I've popped supers and killed supers like a throwing hammer coming at me, downed them, and then shifted out of the way so the hammer doesn't kill me. But the most important thing to remember about Bakris and the Crucible, don't worry about the cooldown of the dodge, that helps keeps it in check. With what this exotic does, it turns the dodge from something spammy to a very aggressive tool. And the best part, the mindset, my favorite part, even if what I found out and what we talked about is a bug, I'm still gonna use this exotic 100%. Because when you shift, it is never a bad shift. It's never wasted, ever. Because when you shift, you're using it to get away, to advance, to misdirect. You're not gonna be spamming it like a regular dodge because you can't. You're gonna use it when you feel that you need to. And even if you die, you try to make a play. That's okay because when you spawn, that timer's gone. At a tier 10 mobility stat, you're gonna get that dodge back in 11 seconds. It's never ever wasted. If you succeed, if you're able to shift and make a good play, that's great. The cooldown's gonna come on the screen, you're gonna wait for the next one. It's all around S tier. In the Crucible, don't ever be thinking, I'm gonna save this shift. When applicable, use it in every single engagement that warrants the shift dodge, because it keeps you alive, it makes huge plays. And again, if you end up dying afterwards, it's okay, you're gonna spawn right up and then start your ability regen, get it back in 11 seconds. Hopefully you learned a little bit. I'm still learning things about it, but I wanted to show you multiple examples of this helmet doing big things. And as I started with, I can all but guarantee that you're gonna use this exotic a little bit differently now. You can approach differently now because it's extremely good. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. Like and shares are always appreciated. And if you're looking for a new controller, I am partnered with Scuff Gaming. Use the link down below, my code COOL at checkout for a discount. Next up are the Necrotic Grips, probably. But I have found that Bakris working with slows works so well. It's almost intentional. Let's talk about it down below. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.